Welcome back, everyone. Now that we've had a sense of how to integrate the government into our equilibrium framework, ceteris paribus, setting aside the money markets, let's see if we can figure out the impact of changes in government spending, taxes, transfers on our equilibrium, and that's going to help us make some decisions about policy. So I'm going to continue with my example of a simple economy, and I have C, and let's just say that C is equal to A plus MPC times YD, right? Where YD is equal to Y minus net taxes, right? In my example so far, this was 1,000 plus 0.7 YD, and so the MPC here was equal to 0.7, right? That was my example. Then I have IP. And for now, let's just assume IP is what it is. And we're going to look at what action we get from the government. And I have G. I have taxes and transfers. And I calculated my equilibrium as I did previously. And let's graph this and see what happens in a minute. But now let's say that as a government, I decided there's a recession, and I think I would really like to increase income. My target level of income should be 2,000 higher than what it is right now, right? And the question is, how much as a government should I increase my expenditure, my government spending on new final goods and services, if I want to increase equilibrium income to hit this higher target level? And the answer is, I can figure that out. So in my example, I'm just going to start with, let's just say that I increased my government spending by 600. If that happens, then what is the effect going to be on final incomes? And the answer is, I know how to do this. I did this when I saw a change in planned investment, right? So the government goes out and it decides to give an order of 600 to acquire new military equipment from a local armaments company. That company goes and hires people, and those people get income worth 600, and then that in turn sets off a chain reaction. So the final change in equilibrium is going to be the initial 600 plus, because my MPC is 0.7, it would be 0.7 times that 600, which is 420, plus 0.7 of that 420, plus, and so on. And the end result is going to be 1 over 1 minus MPC, we've seen this one before, times the initial change. So a 600 change in my government expenditure had a result of increasing my income by 2,000. Right? So you can see that it's possible, if a recession is unfolding or people aren't employed, it's possible for the government to intervene by buying stuff, by doing expenditure. And when the government does it, whether it does it by having expenditures on stuff that it itself creates, like expansion in hiring of judges or whatever, or if it essentially does expenditures to acquire new final goods and services from the private sector, because a lot of what the government expenditure is actually buying stuff from firms, right? So we very often think of government versus firms, but think of Boeing, which is one of the biggest companies in our part of the world. I mean, it's a company that actually depends not exclusively on the government, but it has quite heavy dependence on the government for a lot of expenditures. Military contractors, a lot of tech has had dependence on sort of doing subcontracts for the military and so on. So what you end up getting is that the government buys stuff and the end result is a much larger expansion. So this 1 over 1 minus MPC is also going to be called the government expenditure multiplier, right? So that's the first thing. The government can increase G to increase income, and I can use the government expenditure multiplier to figure out the amount by which Y will increase every time for every dollar increase by the government expenditure. But people are going to be worried. They're going to be like, I don't like big government. I don't think the government should be the one doing the spending. In that case, maybe government should cut taxes. Lots of people win elections by promising to cut taxes. So government is too big. We're not going to do government spending. Let's cut taxes. So let's see what it looks like when we do that. So having done the government expenditure multiplier, remembering that while this is going to have a really good impact on the economy, assuming this is what we want, it is sometimes often unpopular. And also sometimes it creates anxieties because increase in government spending, unless you also increase taxes, sometimes creates anxiety because it will increase your budget deficit by the amount of the expenditure increase. We need to just pause for a minute and say, what are our options? And so we're going to look at our next option, which is tax cuts, in the next video.